What happens when the world's best gymnasts make the worst mistakes on the biggest stage of their lives? From shocking falls to heartbreaking slips, these aren't just bloopers. They're moments that changed careers, crushed dreams, or turned athletes into unexpected icons. In this video, we're diving into the worst gymnastics mistakes ever caught on camera. Some led to tears, others to triumph, and a few you won't believe they actually happened, whether it was pressure, pain, or just bad luck. Each story proves one thing: even legends can fall. Stick around because the final mistake might shock you most. Olga Corbut, from legend to letdown. 1972. Olga Corbut changed the face of gymnastics forever. At the 1972 Olympics in Munich, she stunned the world with the now famous Corbut flip, a standing backflip on the uneven bars that no one had ever seen before. It was daring, explosive, and instantly iconic. Olga became an overnight sensation and the symbol of a new, riskier style of gymnastics that mixed athleticism with drama. But just days after her breakout performance, things took a painful turn. During the uneven bars finals, Corbut struggled from the very first swing. She botched a major release move, couldn't connect her elements, and landed with hesitation. The crowd, which had fallen in love with her only days before, watched in stunned silence. On the floor exercise, her opening tumbling pass, usually her strong point, went wrong. A slip, a misstep. The routine fell apart before she could save it. She had the heart of a champion, but the pressure was unreal, said one Olympic commentator. You could see her cracking under it. And then, in a moment that defined her as more than an athlete, she broke down. As her floor music ended, she wept openly in front of the world. The tears weren't just from failure. They were from the crushing weight of expectation. That vulnerability resonated deeply with audiences. She may have lost medals, but Olga gained something rare: the endearing love of fans who saw her as human. Her downfall that day didn't erase her legend. It completed it. Savannah Vincent of viral for the wrong reason, 2012. In 2012, Savannah Vincent made gymnastics history as the first American woman to reach the Olympic trampoline finals, an event long dominated by other nations. It was an incredible achievement for both her and her sport, and she entered the finals with focus and fire. But something unexpected happened. As Savannah soared and flipped through the air, the cameras picked up something that would soon overshadow her performance. Her facial expressions, the intense concentration, her clenched jaw, wide eyes, mid-air tension, all of it froze frame by frame into memes and GIFs that exploded across the internet. Within hours, she wasn't trending for her athletic breakthrough, but for what her face looked like while defying gravity. She was an athlete doing her job, said former teammate Monica Reyes, and people turned it into a punchline. It was a lesson in how the internet can twist a moment. Despite her incredible 6th place finish, all people seemed to talk about was the facial reactions, but Savannah didn't hide. She later joined in on the jokes, laughing at the memes and turning the moment into something positive. She gave interviews, leaned into the fame, and used it to shine a light on trampoline, a sport often overlooked. In a digital age, her mistake wasn't athletic. It was simply being seen, and sometimes that kind of attention can be harder to navigate than any routine. Michaela Moroni, the unimpressed fall, 2012. Going into the 2012 London Olympics, Michaela Moroni wasn't just a medal favorite on vault. She was considered unbeatable. Her Aminar vault had been performed with such perfection that commentators joked judges needed higher scores just for her. Her first vault in the final, flawless. A rocket launch with a perfect landing. The gold seemed guaranteed, but then came vault number 2. She sprinted, hit the springboard, twisted into the air, and then misjudged the landing. Too much power, not enough control. She landed flat on her backside. The crowd gasped. The cameras zoomed in. Just like that, her golden dream was gone. Instead of walking away with gold, she stood on the podium with silver, and an expression that said it all. Lips tight, eyes straight ahead. That face would become one of the most shared images in Olympic history. She owned that moment, said one fan. Turned a miss into a meme, and then into a brand. Michaela didn't retreat. She leaned into the fame, joked about the photo, and even recreated it with President Obama. Her career wasn't defined by a fall, it was defined by how she responded. But while Michaela's misstep was softened by humor and fame, the next gymnast's mistake came with brutal physical pain and lasting impact. Carrie Strug, heroic pain on one foot, 1996. The 1996 Atlanta Olympics were about to write history for the U.S. women's gymnastics team. Team USA was on the brink of winning their first ever team gold medal. All they needed was one more solid vault, and that job fell to Carrie Strug. On her first attempt, disaster hit. Carrie landed awkwardly and twisted her ankle. She limped away in obvious pain. The team's lead was razor thin. The pressure fell squarely on her shoulders. The world watched as she prepared for her second and final attempt. Then, against all odds, she ran. She hit the vault with speed, launched into the air, twisted mid-flight, and landed on one foot. She held the pose, then collapsed in agony. But it was enough. Team USA secured gold. "It hurt like hell," Carrie later said, "but we had a job to do." Her image and being carried by Coach Bella Caroli, ankle bandaged, tears streaming, became an instant Olympic legend. That moment was more than sports. It was heart, courage, and sacrifice rolled into one. Carrie's pain brought triumph. But not every fall ends with gold. For Alyssa Downey, it brought a terrifying silence. Alyssa Downey, headfirst horror on floor, 2016. At the 2016 European Championships, Alyssa Downey had the spotlight, the momentum, and the crowd on her side. As one of Great Britain's rising stars, she was building a name for herself with powerful vaults, crisp bars, and the kind of energy that made fans believe something big was coming. She had already posted solid scores on bars and beam, two events that demanded control and precision. All signs pointed to a breakout competition, but then came the floor routine, in one of the most terrifying moments in modern gymnastics. As the music began, Alyssa looked composed. Her choreography flowed, and her first few moves hinted at the dynamic energy that defined her style. Then, midway through her routine, she launched into a high-difficulty tumbling pass. The takeoff was strong, but something went wrong mid-air. Her rotation wasn't fast enough. The flip came in short. She didn't have time to adjust. Instead of landing on her feet, Alyssa came crashing down, headfirst into the mat. The impact was immediate, brutal, audible. The crowd gasped, judges froze. Her teammates on the sidelines were visibly shaken, but no reaction was more heart-wrenching than that of her sister, Ellie Downey, also a world-class gymnast, who screamed in horror as she watched from the wings. For a few seconds, time stood still. "It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen live," said a coach at the event. "You don't shake that off." The fall was more than just a routine gone wrong. It was a genuine moment of fear. Viewers didn't just wonder about deductions or medals. They wondered if she was okay. Medical staff rushed in as Alyssa lay on the floor, clearly dazed. The cameras pulled back. The arena, moments earlier filled with music and motion, had fallen silent. And then, somehow, she got up. After receiving attention and clearing initial medical checks, Alyssa made a decision that stunned everyone. She wasn't done. She stepped back onto the competition floor for vault. Most expected a scratch, but she sprinted down the runway and landed her vault cleanly, with form and fight that sent a message. She wasn't backing down. That return wasn't about points or podiums, it was about heart, about resilience. "She didn't need to stick that landing," said one British broadcaster. "She'd already proven everything." Though her medal hopes were gone after the floor fall, Alyssa's bravery turned into something even more valuable: universal respect. Her name became known not just for what she could do in perfect conditions, but for how she responded when everything went wrong. The moment was a reminder that gymnastics isn't just about grace and glitter, it's about courage. And sometimes, the most powerful routines are the ones done after the crash. Gabby Douglas, the almost fall, 2012. Gabby Douglas lit up the London 2012 Olympics with her explosive energy and clean execution. Nicknamed the Flying Squirrel for her gravity-defying flight on the bars, she soared into the history books as the first black woman to win the Olympic all-around title. But few remember that her path to greatness almost took a painful detour, right on the balance beam. In the team final, Gabby mounted the beam with confidence, but midway through, during a spin, her foot slipped. Her body wobbled hard. For a second, her center of gravity shifted so far off the beam that it looked impossible to recover, yet somehow she did. A quick adjustment, a sharp arm swing, and she found her balance. Again, saving the routine and her team's momentum. "That wasn't just skill," said one commentator. "That was championship-level composure." It was a moment that could have shattered her rhythm, but instead it became a footnote in her golden journey. The beam is known as the most unforgiving event in gymnastics. 4 inches wide, no room for fear. Gabby stared down a near disaster and walked off victorious. And that's the fine line every gymnast walks. 1 second you're a hero, 1 slip and you're a headline. Something Nastia Liukin knew too well in her comeback attempt. Nastia Liukin, the face first fall, 2012. 4 years after standing atop the podium in Beijing, Nastia Liukin decided to make one last run for Olympic glory. She had already etched her name in history as an all-around champion in 2008, but the fire to return burned too brightly to ignore. By 2012, the sport had changed. Routines were harder, younger talent had surged, and the pace was relentless. Still, Nastia trained with determination, aiming to qualify through the Olympic trials. On the uneven bars, her signature event, she needed a flawless routine. She mounted with poise and began her sequence. But on a key release skill, she reached for the bar and missed. Her body crashed to the mat face first. The arena fell silent. She laid there for a few seconds, said one reporter, and every heart in that place dropped. But what followed was a testament to who she was. Nastia got up. She didn't storm off or cry. She saluted and minutes later performed her beam routine with elegance and heart. Despite knowing her Olympic dreams were over, it was the end of her competitive career, but not her legacy. She walked away, not with medals, but with the respect of every fan watching. Not every fall ends in dignity though. Some are pure terror, like what Adrien Nieste endured on the high bar. Adrien Nieste knocked out cold, 2000. Adrien Nieste was a promising gymnast representing Hungary at the Sydney Olympics in 2000. He was clean, consistent, and composed. Not a medal favorite, but definitely a name to watch. That made what happened next all the more horrifying. During his high bar routine, Adrien attempted a release move requiring him to let go mid-air and catch the bar again. He launched into the move, but missed completely. His body whipped around and slammed into the mat with brutal force. He didn't move, not for 5, 10, then 30 seconds. The air left the room, said a fellow competitor. Everyone thought the worst. Medics rushed in, coaches dropped to their knees. The audience sat frozen in silence, unsure whether they were watching a tragedy unfold. Then, incredibly, Adrien stirred. He slowly sat up. Against all odds, he was conscious. Shaken, but alive. Tests later confirmed he had escaped without major injuries. It was a miracle, but the visual of his motionless body became one of the most haunting moments in Olympic gymnastics history. He never returned to Olympic form, but his name lives on as a reminder of how dangerous this sport truly is, and how, under pressure, even the strongest can crack. Dominique Mosanu learned in Atlanta. Dominique Mosanu, pressure-induced falls, 1996. At just 14 years old, Dominique Mosanu was already a star. She was the youngest member of the 1996 US Olympic team, the Magnificent Seven. But while her smile lit up magazine covers, behind the scenes, the pressure was crushing. In the team final, everything was on the line. Dominique stepped up to the vault. Her first run went bad. Her foot clipped the springboard and she crashed to the mat. The second try wasn't better. Another fall. In a span of moments, her Olympic dream turned into a nightmare. You could see it in her eyes, said one coach. She was scared, frozen. Her twin mistakes put the team's gold hopes in jeopardy. That set the stage for Carrie Strug's now legendary vault on an injured ankle. But while Carrie's pain was physical, Dominique's was emotional. She was painted as the weak link in an otherwise historic win. Years later, she spoke out about the immense pressure and lack of support she felt. Her falls weren't just technical. They were the product of a system that demanded perfection from a child. And that emotional toll, it followed her into adulthood. Not every wipeout is about missed footing. Some are about broken expectations, as Vanessa Ferrari would find out decades later. Vanessa Ferrari, mid-routine wipeout, 2020. Vanessa Ferrari had been chasing Olympic success for over a decade. A former world champion from Italy, she had battled through injuries, surgeries, and heartbreak to get back on the biggest stage in Tokyo 2020. This was supposed to be her moment, the final shot at the medal that had always slipped away. Her floor routine began with energy and precision. Her tumbling was sharp, her artistry on point. But then, disaster. Midway through a tumbling pass, she landed awkwardly, stepping far outside the boundary. Then came a stumble, one that nearly brought her to the mat. Her expression changed instantly. The poise was gone. In seconds, her medal hopes vanished. She knew it before the music stopped, said an Italian sports writer. You could see it in her face. Pure heartbreak. When she finished, she bowed deeply. The cameras caught tears welling in her eyes. She had fought for years, only for a few seconds to undo it all. But Vanessa didn't give up. She returned to the world stage later that year and finally won Olympic silver, the first Italian woman to do so on floor. It wasn't the ending she expected in Tokyo, but it was a powerful reminder. The worst moments can still lead to a legacy worth remembering. Shawn Johnson, beam blunder, 2008. Shawn Johnson arrived at the 2008 Beijing Olympics with the weight of a nation on her back. She was the reigning world all-around champion and America's golden girl. Poised, powerful, and seemingly unshakable. With every routine she performed, the expectation wasn't just to do well. It was to win. She dazzled on vault, dominated the floor, stayed strong on bars. But when it came time for her beam routine in the all-around final, a place where she was nearly untouchable, a single wobble changed everything. Early in her routine, Shawn launched into a spin combination. It was supposed to be clean, sharp, a guaranteed connection bonus. But in an instant, her foot slipped slightly on the 4-inch beam. She wobbled, her arms flared, and though she saved herself from falling, the routine was visibly rattled. The small misstep led to a deduction. And in Olympic scoring, even the tiniest bobble can shatter gold medal hopes. That moment cost her everything, said a retired judge reviewing the final. Not because she was bad, but because she was nearly perfect otherwise. Shawn would go on to win silver in the all-around, finishing just behind her teammate, Nastia Liukin, and though she later claimed gold on beam in the event finals, the sting of that missed opportunity remained. Years later, Shawn opened up about how that moment haunted her, not just because of the medal, but because she felt she had let expectations down. Yet in reality, that brief blunder only made her more relatable to fans. Even the best make mistakes. Even the most disciplined can slip. And sometimes the mistake isn't just physical, it can happen in the mind. A twist of confidence, a loss of sense. No gymnast in recent history made that more clear than Simone Biles. Simone Biles, mental mistake heard round the world 2020. Simone Biles didn't just dominate gymnastics, she redefined it. With multiple world championships, Olympic medals, and skills named after her, she walked into the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, held in 2021, as the undisputed GOAT. The greatest of all time, but dangerous mental block where gymnasts lose their sense of orientation mid-air. It's terrifying, it's unpredictable, and for someone flying 10 feet off the ground, it's life-threatening. I literally cannot tell up from down, Biles said. I didn't trust myself. Her decision to withdraw from multiple events shocked the world. Some called her brave. Others questioned her. But in stepping away, Simone did something no gymnast at her level had ever done. She put her mental health above the medals. Her teammates rallied. The US still took home silver in the team final. And days later, Simone returned for the beam final, choosing a simpler dismount and performing it cleanly to win bronze. It wasn't about scores anymore. It was about courage, about leading with honesty, about showing the world that even the strongest among us can face invisible battles. And while Simone's stumble was mental, others face heartbreak in the physical form, like Paul Reggeri, whose Olympic hopes ended with one wrong landing. Paul Reggeri, vault gone wrong, 2016 trials. Paul Reggeri was never handed anything. A powerful American gymnast with raw strength and fierce ambition, he had spent years just on the edge of the spotlight, winning national medals, making world teams, and pushing for Olympic glory. 2016 was supposed to be his year. At the US Olympic trials, Paul knew the vault was his ticket to a final impression. His routines had been strong, but vault, his powerhouse event, could be the decider. He sprinted down the runway, launched into his skill, flipped and twisted with force, and over-rotated belly. Instead of landing clean, Paul's feet hit, but his momentum pushed him backwards. He stepped out of bounds, a major deduction. His body language said it all. He knew what just happened. That one step erased 4 years of work, one broadcaster muttered. Despite an otherwise strong showing, the vault mistake dropped him just enough in the rankings. He wasn't named to the Olympic team. Just like that, his dream was over. One bad landing, one miscalculation, and everything changed. Paul later spoke about the heartbreak, saying, "There's nothing worse than knowing you had it and lost it in a second." He retired shortly after, and while he's still respected in the gymnastics community, his story is a reminder that this sport doesn't forgive. One step, 1 inch, and it can all disappear. But it's not just high-profile names who face devastation. Sometimes it's the lesser-known athletes whose quiet mistakes hurt just as much. Elena Quan, bars breakdown, 2015 Pan Am Games. Elena Quan wasn't a household name, but in 2015 she had her shot. Representing the US at the Pan Am Games, she had a chance to shine on an international stage. to prove herself, to rise above the noise, and make a case for the big leagues. Everything was riding on her bar routine. She mounted confidently, moved through her early elements cleanly, and then it happened. Mid-swing, she reached for a transition and missed. Her hand slipped, she slammed to the mat. There was a moment of disorientation. She looked stunned, even confused. The cameras caught her face, blank, trying to recenter, trying to remember where she was in her routine. She remounted, finished, but the damage was done. Her score tanked. "She looked lost out there," said one analyst, and that's the worst feeling, when your mind and body disconnect on the biggest stage of your life. Her fall wasn't viral, it didn't trend, it wasn't a front page headline, but for Elena, it was everything. An Olympic door closed quietly without fanfare. She finished her other events strong, but the media barely mentioned her name, yet those who watched closely knew the truth. Gymnastics doesn't always break you in the spotlight. Sometimes it breaks you in silence, or when no one's watching, and there you have it. The most unforgettable mistakes in gymnastics history. Some ended in heartbreak, others in heroic comebacks. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and tell us which moment stuck with you the most. See you in the next one.